Well, welcome to Wings with Jeff, where we're having these conversations about how to live the Christian life like Jesus. And today we're talking about solitude, which is something that Jesus regularly practiced, even though he lived a very busy life. It wasn't a life of all solitude, but he had a rhythm of busyness and solitude. And we want to talk about that. And I'm not very good at it. Jan, you know that. Jan Sampeck, thanks so much for being with us. So Jan is like my big sister. We've known each other for 33 years, done ministry together for 33 years. In fact, she was a pastor on our staff for a long time. And just what happened just 2 minutes ago is she made me redo the taping because I had a nose hair hanging out. So that's Jan, right? We're close. And so it's really good to see you.
It's great to be here.
And before we dive into the conversation, we've got some wings here at Wing Snob, and there are locations all over the place, and heard really good things. So we get to try them. Why don't we go ahead and try one, and then as we talk, we can kind of eat. Now this is the chicken and waffles, which is
maple syrup on it. Is that maple syrup on it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do we dip in?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, I'll try this one. You try that one. No.
It is really good. Nice and sweet. Let's talk a little bit what we're talking about solitude. We're kind of in a busy wing restaurant talking about solitude, but that's, I think, a good thing because we all live really busy lives, and how do we prioritize? How do we make time for it? What do we even do with solitude? But what do you think happens when we ignore that rhythm? What happens to our soul? What happens to us when we either just neglect solitude in a world where we got so much stimulation, so much busyness all the time? And what happens positively when we pay attention to it?
Yeah. I think for me, and from what others have shared with me that have put a practice of solitude into their life is, I don't know my soul. I forget it. I'm unaware of it. When I don't take the time to actually be still enough to be with it. So it's not like I disappear, but it's like my awareness of who I am is not there. Information comes at us and life comes at us at such a silly, fast pace that it's really hard to even take the time to be present to what's going on inside of me. And I think all of us, because we're so enraptured in what's going on around us, or if we're somebody with high empathy with what's going on with another person. And so solitude actually makes space to just be present to our soul, to the spirit within us, and to God working in and through us. And I think we forget that if we don't make the time for that, if we don't make space.
Well, Jesus wasn't a monk, so he didn't just do solitude all the time, right? You read about his life, and some of the days that we read are just crazy, like he's just all over the place. But then you have these times of solitude that you could tell he really fought for it. And I think in our world with, we have phones with screens now. We got screens everywhere, plus just the busyness of life. You and Mike run a business, so it's not like you're not busy. And yet I know solitude is something very important to you. So how do you fight for it? Like how do you resist all the craziness of culture and screens and all that in order to find solitude? What does that look like for you and your rhythm of your life?
It's got to be one of those things where you just make it a priority. No one is going to make time for Jan in Jan's day to take time to be away, except Jan. And what that looks like can be different each day, because each day can have its own challenges and its own rhythm, and you want to be present to life as well. Yeah. So it's not like totally unplugging. It's not becoming a monk. It's not, distancing yourself from the world, but I just like to think of it as making space. It's like a God date. So it's like my time to just go be with God and me. I think the way I have to do it is first thing in the morning. Now, not everybody's a morning person, so there's no rule that it has to be first thing in the morning. But especially now that we're in more vocational ministry, I feel like the business God's given us is His, and all I'm doing is being a steward of it. And Mike's goal, is to show up every day and love the people that God gives us that come through the door, and we don't know who that's going to be half the time. And I can't be the best me for the world if I don't even know who I am and haven't taken the time to care for me and my soul.
And then how long?
For me, it's only 15 to 20 minutes. Sometimes I can go to 45, depending on what's going on that day, but it's maybe 15 to 20 minutes.
And then what do you do? You know, because I think a lot of people have tried, okay, I'm going to be with God or whatever, and then after about 2 minutes, it's like, I don't know what I'm doing, and they give up.
I'll tell you what I do. And so
I'm going to try some awesome sauce.
Go ahead,
too.
try some awesome.
Do you want to try some?
Yeah. Of course, I can't talk and eat.
I know. This is called awesome sauce. They say it's a fan favorite.
Let me lick my finger first.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's like a mustard. It's like Chick-fil-A meets wing sauce somehow.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. Okay, so what I do is I have 2 dogs, which wake up with me when I get up at 4. And so my deal is I have to get them settled, feed them, get them done, and make myself a cup of tea, and then they know the routine. Me and the dogs go upstairs, and I have a space in my home that's upstairs where I have an Alexa that I tell it to turn on instrumental music, and it's very soft, and I have my cup of tea, and I just sit still, and I actually watch the dogs for probably 5 minutes, because I found that they are the biggest picture of God's unconditional love sometimes in my life. And so for me, it involves even just watching them play with each other, or just curl up and settle down next to each other. It actually is a method for me of actually becoming still, is to watch them. And then I have multiple different things I use. It's not any one thing. Sometimes it's a little devotional reading. Sometimes it's scripture. Sometimes it's a poem. Sometimes it's a book that we're doing in small group that I want to dig a little deeper into a chapter. It's just something that actually centers me around a space that I can still myself enough to ask the question and listen. Solitude for me is 99%, I should say exactly, listening. It's not thinking, it's not constructing, it's not planning a day, it's not solving a problem, it's listening. So it's asking the question that seems to surface through whatever I have.
So when you say listening, though, are you just not doing anything, but you're listening as you're reading, or as you're watching your dogs, or as you're praying, or as you're reading the poem or the scripture passage? Yeah.
I'm listening to the question that's coming up within me, which is really, I think, Holy Spirit, the flow of the Holy Spirit. I don't even know what the question is going to be half the time. But it's a wondering, or it's a question that I feel like I need to just sit with and be with God in that question. Sometimes it might be something simple as, what does that mean? What does that mean in my life? Sometimes it's even like, God, who are you? And who am I? I mean, those seem like I should know that. Yeah. And while I know that, He's revealing Himself as something else. Thank you. Yeah. Each day in different ways. So asking those questions like, God, who are you even in this story? Who are you in this feeling that I'm having? And that's the other thing I would say. I don't know what I'm feeling half of the time. I don't slow down enough to really ask what I'm feeling. So making space and taking time away to just be present to what God is moving and speaking to my heart, and saying, how do you feel? And sometimes it's not how you emotionally feel. There is that. Sometimes it's, how do you physically feel? And then, why do you feel that way? Just asking those 2 questions, I could sit and probably write for 15 minutes on that if I let myself. Because I may not know the answer, but when I still myself long enough to ask it and let God reveal it to me, there's usually right there where the invitation for me to let God do the work in me to form me to be more like Him when I ask those questions.
Okay. So you So you'll have several questions like that, but you're really looking, okay, God, what is the one big question you have for me today that I'm going to keep coming to you with? Which is interesting because I always ask God for what is my one big idea that you want me to think about today, or what is so similar. So that's a daily routine, and then you go to work, do your day, which is probably not solitude kind of day at your place.
No.
And then I know at times you'll take more time, like you'll have an extended time on a Saturday or something like that where is that right?
Yes.
You take a little bit, so talk about that.
I do like a daily, and when I say I do a daily time,
I'm going to try the next one. You're welcome to or
I'm
not
going
to.
to finish the waffle first.
Okay. Yep.
I do a daily time because I know I need that. I need that just to want to get up and go love people. But once a week, usually on the weekend, I have a more extended time, about an hour and a half, that usually involves a walk for me. I'm a nature person, so I like to take a walk and maybe have some music on. It depends on if it's noisy downtown or not. And just be present to God in nature. A lot of times there's worship music in my head. Other times it's just being present to the people I pass. Because sometimes it's the stranger right there that I'm going to have the God moment with. Or it's a neighbor that I haven't seen for a month that I'm going to have a God moment with. So once a week, usually on the weekend, I do that. If I get the privilege of being away from home on the weekend, I like being on the water, like being on a boat on the water. It's magical.
Yeah.
If I'm not in a crowd of people, if I get the opportunity to be in the mountains, I love that. So yeah, I take a little bit more extended time, usually once a week. And my goal used to be quarterly to take like a longer time, like a weekend, but I haven't done that for several years.
So if somebody was going to get started, if somebody, let's say tomorrow morning or whenever is a good time for them, they were going to take 15 minutes, how would you suggest they just get started?
I think the biggest challenge is to make the space. So just be intentional about making space. It dawned on me the other day when I was reading something about how Jesus, fully God, fully human, took that time to go away. I mean, he was intentional about getting away, even from his closest circles, just for a bit. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they didn't know where he was. Sometimes they did. But if he did it, how much more do we need to do it? And especially with the frenetic information that comes at us right now, just the noise. I mean, this is a great place, but if the cameras could see the 4 screens all around us, I mean, the animal stuff that's been on back there and Family Feud over there, I mean, there's just information overload all the time. It's really important to start with just turning everything off and just being still. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be silence. It may be. That's cool. Yeah. But it doesn't have to be silent. But if you can just give yourself even some kind of background instrumental music or just nature sounds, something to actually bring you to a space where you can hear what God's trying to speak to you, that's just where to start. You don't have to have a ton of books or you don't have to have a ton of resources. Just make the space and go with an open heart and a question like, where do you want to meet me today? That's it. That's simple and easy. Yeah. And it shouldn't be too scary. The scariest part is, I think, the unknown, right? Yeah. It's like you don't know what you don't know. But God never brings something that isn't based in love and a warm embrace. I mean, he just always does. Yeah. So.
And I know for me, even with the Bible, a lot of times choose a chapter, even though the chapter divisions are arbitrary, and it's not Leviticus usually, or, but, and just ask God, hey, is there one thing that jumps off the page? And usually there is. So let's
make me do that.
I think I love you too much to ask you to do that.
I'll try it, but you try it first.
I'm going to try it first because I'm a little nervous.
I love you so much, I will do it for you.
Yeah, I'm a little scared of that. Also, just to warn you, I double dipped in this one. I didn't, when you were talking, I was focused on what you're saying.
That's okay. We didn't try this one though.
It's kind of rude. That's a spicy one, but you're welcome to it.
So well, maybe not spicy on spicy. Okay, go for it. Okay. Hot as France.
It's good. It sneaks up on you. Yeah. I don't think you should do this.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'll just wash my face.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think you should do this one. It's not bad, but
I'm gonna stick my finger.
grows.
Let me just stick my finger right there on that sauce.
it grows on you.
This is the hot part, right? No, it's hot from start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
It's hot.
we'll deal with that. Well, Jan, thanks so much for just being who you are in my life and our church. I know this is super helpful. And just thanks for sharing this part of who you are and this part of your story. And let's just try to find time to just give it a shot to live more like Jesus, and that includes solitude, where we can learn to be comfortable with God, with ourselves, and just hear from Him, feel His love for us as we go through our day. And I'm going to get something to drink, so we'll see you on the next one.